Imagine opening a treasure chest that holds secrets of a kingdom, where each sparkling jewel whispers tales of queens and princesses from long ago. Now, picture one man, at the very end of his life, deciding to hand over that entire chest not to his own children, but to someone he believes will protect the future of his family's name. That is exactly what just happened in the royal world, and the choice he made has sent shockwaves through the palace, bypassing kings and queens to place his most prized possessions directly into the hands of a woman he trusts to carry the monarchy forward. This is a story about trust, legacy, and a quiet act of defiance that will shape the royal family for generations to come. This morning, a huge change happened in the royal family that many people are talking about. The Duke of Kent, who is 90 years old, made a final decision about his family's most valuable jewelry. He permanently gave a very special collection of sapphires to Catherine, the Princess of Wales. What makes this really interesting is that he did it without asking the king or the queen for their permission. The legal papers were signed and finished this morning at Windsor Castle. The timing is also very interesting because today is Princess Charlotte's 11th birthday. This all started after the Duke's wife, the Duchess of Kent, passed away back in September of last year. Since she died, the Duke has been thinking very carefully about what will happen to all his things when he is gone. He has been focusing on making sure his estate is handled exactly the way he wants. What he decided to do with these sapphires tells us a lot about who he truly trusts to keep the monarchy strong in the future. And when you look at who he did not give them to, that is where the story gets even more fascinating. Let us talk about what actually took place this morning. At a little before 10 o'clock, lawyers who work for the Kent family arrived at Windsor Castle to make the transfer official. The collection of jewels is called the Cambridge Sapphire Parure, which is just a fancy name for a matching set. This set includes a tiara, a necklace, several brooches, and some earrings. This particular collection has been in the Kent family for more than 90 years. However, the original set was actually bigger. Some pieces were sold at an auction house back in the 1970s when the family was having money problems. That is actually a very important part of why this transfer is happening right now. The Duke personally remembers watching those historic jewels get sold off to strangers because the people who owned them could not afford to keep them. He did not want that to happen again. He carried that sad memory with him for decades, and it clearly influenced every choice he made about the remaining pieces. Here is what makes this transfer very different from the usual way royal families pass jewelry around. These sapphires are not part of the official crown jewels. They are not held in trust for the country. They are private property. This means the Duke could sell them, give them away, or leave them to whoever he wanted. The king has no legal power to demand that they be given to the royal collection. He cannot tell the Duke where they must go. This legal freedom is the whole reason the Duke was able to make this move without needing anyone's permission. The stones originally belonged to Princess Augusta, who was the Duchess of Cambridge, back in the early 1800s. Later, they were passed to Queen Mary, who gave them to the Duke's mother, Princess Marina, in 1934. Because they were a personal gift, they stayed private. They never became part of the central royal vault system that the monarch controls. That difference is everything. It means the Duke was acting as a private citizen, giving away his own property, not as a royal official managing state assets. The Duke's choice to give these jewels to Catherine instead of his own sons tells you everything about how he sees the future of the royal family. His sons, George and Lord Nicholas Windsor, do not have official royal duties. They have their own lives and their own careers. And in the past, when important jewelry has been given to family members who do not have public roles, those items often end up being sold to pay inheritance taxes or to cover personal costs. The Duke watched parts of the original Cambridge set get sold off decades ago, and he was determined not to let the remaining treasures go the same way. According to reports from inside the palace, he told his lawyers last month that the stones must stay with the woman who represents the future of the monarchy. He said they should not be split up among private citizens who cannot wear them to state events. That is a pretty direct statement about his own children's situation. But it is not coming from a place of anger. It comes from a man who has served the monarchy for over 80 years and sees these objects as tools for public representation, not just pretty things to be locked away in a safe. He understands that jewelry at this level has a diplomatic purpose. It carries a symbolic weight that only becomes real when it is worn in service of the crown. This is where the Duke of Kent's personal authority really matters. He is one of only two members of the royal family who holds the rank of Field Marshal in the British Army. The other one is the king himself. The Duke became the Duke of Kent when he was just 6 years old after his father died in a plane crash during the war in 1942. He has been performing royal duties with quiet dedication for 8 decades. He is the longest-serving duke in British history. When someone with that kind of background makes a choice about his private estate, people pay close attention. He reportedly told his estate managers that his rank and his years of service are not just for show. They are tools to make sure that what his mother treasured remains within the working heart of the family. He said he would not see these pieces scattered to the wind. That is not just sentimental talk. That is a man using every bit of influence he has to secure a legacy. He did it with the same quiet precision he brought to every military and ceremonial duty he ever performed. The timing of all this goes back to the sad days after the Duchess of Kent's funeral in September. People who watched the royals closely noticed several private meetings between the Duke and senior palace advisors during that time. It seems that was when the first plans for this transfer began to take shape. He was in a time of reflection, looking at what remained of his life's work, and he decided that preserving the Kent legacy would be his final mission. The careful military precision in his estate planning has effectively outmaneuvered any efforts to bring these sapphires under the Queen Consort's control. By using the legal protections that come with private royal estates, the Duke made sure his decision is final and cannot be changed. In the world of the Windsors, possession is not just most of the law. It is the law itself, and the Duke understood that law better than almost anyone alive. Now, many people assume the relationship between Catherine and the Duke of Kent is just the usual distant cousin situation, maybe a few waves on the palace balcony. But that assumption is wrong. If you look at the official records from September 2020, you will find that Catherine, who was the Duchess of Cambridge at the time, was appointed joint president of the Scout Association, serving alongside the Duke. This was not just a symbolic title. The Duke had held that presidency since 1975, and bringing Catherine in as joint president was a carefully planned transition. Over the next 6 years, he watched her work ethic up close. He saw how she handled responsibility, how she respected old traditions, and how she showed up for quiet, steady service that has defined his entire career. The Duke is a traditionalist who values duty above everything. And in Catherine, he found someone he considered a kindred spirit, someone capable of handling the weight of royal history without seeking the spotlight for personal gain. He saw someone who understood that service is not about applause, but about showing up day after day, no matter who is watching. There is also a connection in the names that I do not think is an accident. The jewels are called the Cambridge Sapphires. For over 10 years, Catherine carried the title of Duchess of Cambridge. To the Duke, the idea of these specific stones returning to a Duchess of Cambridge, who actually performs the work of the monarchy, must have felt like restoring the jewels to their rightful place. His sons took different paths. One married a Roman Catholic, and the other converted to Catholicism. While those are personal choices they have every right to make, they have historically made their positions within the traditional Anglican structures of the monarchy more complicated. More importantly, they are private citizens. They do not represent the king at state banquets. They do not receive foreign dignitaries. The Duke reportedly told his advisors that his sons chose their own journeys, and he respects them for it. But these sapphires require a public life. They need to be seen at the heart of the nation's ceremonies, not hidden away in a private safe or sold to pay taxes. Catherine, in his view, was the only one who could give them a purpose. She was the only one who could ensure they continue to do what they were always meant to do, which is to appear on the world stage as symbols of continuity and grace. That is a pretty remarkable thing to say about someone who is not your child. This transfer also creates an interesting dynamic between the two most senior women in the royal family right now. Queen Camilla, as the queen consort, naturally has first right of refusal for the official crown jewels and many of the personal pieces left by the late Queen Elizabeth. Her access to the legendary royal collection is unmatched. But those items are held in trust for the institution. They are not hers personally in the same way these sapphires now belong to Catherine. The Duke's collection operates under an entirely different set of rules. Because these items are private wealth, they bypass the traditional queue completely. The Duke used his legal right to look past the current occupant of the throne and place his treasures directly into the hands of the next generation. This creates a situation where Camilla represents the present, the steady hand at the side of King Charles during a time of change, while Catherine is increasingly seen as the future, building a personal collection of history that belongs to her alone. It is not a competition in a personal sense, but it is a structural reality that shifts the center of power within the family. Royal experts have often pointed out the strict hierarchy that governs how the late Queen's jewelry is shared out. Normally, that hierarchy would mean Camilla gets first look at anything important. But the Duke of Kent's private wealth does not answer to that hierarchy. The feeling among palace observers is that the Queen has the crown, but the princess has the momentum. Every time Catherine wears a piece with a story behind it, she strengthens her connection with the public and reinforces her position as the ultimate ambassador for the family's heritage. The Duke's decision ensures these specific sapphires will not be absorbed into the large, anonymous collection of the crown. They will remain distinct, linked to the woman he believes will define the monarchy in the years to come. That kind of clear thinking is rare in royal circles, where uncertainty and compromise are usually the norm. What seems to have sealed this decision for the Duke was Catherine's appearance on a list of influential people in health back in May last year. To a 90-year-old man, evaluating who deserves to carry a historic legacy, this recognition was not just a nice honor. It was proof of something he needed to see. The world watched throughout 2024 and early 2025 as Catherine went through her cancer treatment and recovery. Her victory over that illness was documented by both specialist outlets and mainstream publications, and it changed her from a royal figure into a global symbol of strength. By the start of this year, independent polls showed her approval rating had reached an incredible 90%. She had become, in every way you can measure, the most valuable asset to the House of Windsor. For the Duke, a man who has spent 8 decades watching the rise and fall of various royal reputations, this public support was crucial. His thinking was that historic jewelry of this quality must belong to the person who holds the heart of the people. He saw these sapphires not as fashion accessories, but as symbols of the monarchy's lasting bond with the citizens it serves. And Catherine, through her grace under immense pressure, had proven she was that bond in human form. He reportedly told his advisors during a private meeting last winter that tradition is not about looking backward. It is about ensuring that what is precious is held by those who can inspire the next generation. He said that Catherine has shown a strength that goes beyond titles, and she has earned the right to wear these stones. That is not the language of someone making a casual gift. That is the language of someone making a careful institutional investment. This all led to a public moment on the birthday of the late Queen Elizabeth. The Duke made what many believe to be his final significant public appearance, standing in quiet conversation with Catherine. Royal observers have since seen that scene as a symbolic passing of the torch, an elderly field marshal and the future queen recognizing something special in each other. The photographs from that day show a particular kind of understanding passing between them, the kind that does not require words. So now we come to today, May 2nd, 2026, Princess Charlotte's 11th birthday. And this is where the long game becomes clear. Catherine has been carefully putting together a private jewelry collection meant for Charlotte, a collection that is separate from the official state vaults. We got clear confirmation of this transfer this morning when Catherine was seen at a private family gathering at Windsor wearing the diamond and sapphire earrings from the original Cambridge set. These pieces, once the pride of Princess Marina, were thought to be permanently retired from public view. Their reappearance today sends a clear signal that the Duke of Kent's treasures have successfully moved to the next generation. This is no longer just talk. It is a visible fact. And the choice to show them for the first time on Charlotte's birthday was not an accident. It was a carefully planned message that the line of inheritance for these treasures now runs directly from mother to daughter. What this moment represents is the end of the Kent era, as a major independent force in royal collecting, and the beginning of a more focused era under William and Catherine. By securing these sapphires, which have origins in the Russian royal family, the Princess of Wales has made sure that the most important pieces of the family's private history remain within the direct line of the throne. It is a calculated act of preservation. A close family friend reportedly shared that Catherine understands her daughter's future status depends on the symbols of the past. And by securing the Kent legacy now, she is building a foundation for Charlotte that cannot be affected by the changing winds of palace politics. That is the key point here. It cannot be touched because these are private assets. They are not subject to the whims of whoever happens to be running the royal collection at any given moment. They belong to Catherine, and one day they will belong to Charlotte, and there is nothing anyone in the palace can do about it. That kind of security is priceless in an institution where access to the royal vault can change with a single private conversation. The Duke of Kent, at 90 years old, has completed what he apparently sees as his final duty. He navigated the complex issues of inheritance taxes and royal rules to place his family's most treasured possessions in the safest possible hands. The handover is a testament to his trust in Catherine's strength and her role as a solid foundation of the modern monarchy. He did not choose the crown. He did not choose the central vault. He chose a person. And he chose her based on 6 years of working alongside her, watching how she handled pressure, and eventually seeing her come through a health crisis with more public support than ever. That kind of clear judgment is rare at any age, but at 90, it shows a lifetime of learning how to read people and measure character. The Duke trusted his own judgment over every rule and expectation, and he acted accordingly. The image of those sapphires at Windsor today is the most powerful piece of evidence we have. They represent a bridge between the 19th century grandeur of Queen Mary and the 21st century reality of a monarchy that is getting smaller but becoming more focused. The concentration of these treasures under Catherine ensures they will continue to be seen at the most important moments of national life, rather than disappearing into the shadows of a private estate or being broken down for their valuable materials. The Duke has seen too many royal treasures vanish into private collections. He was not going to let it happen again on his watch. And by acting now, while he still has the legal power and the moral authority to direct his estate, he has closed the door on any future confusion. The sapphires are where they belong, and that chapter is finished. When you step back and look at the whole picture, the story of the British monarchy is often told through its battles and its laws, but its true strength is found in these tangible links of gold and stone. History is not just written in ink. It is etched into the diamonds and sapphires worn by the woman who will one day be queen. Catherine has not just gained a collection. She has secured a future, and she has done it with the blessing of the one man whose private wealth and military rank gave him the authority to make it happen, without asking anyone's permission. The Duke of Kent spent 80 years serving an institution that often moved slowly and carefully, but in his final act, he moved with speed and certainty. He looked at the family tree, looked at who actually shows up, looked at who the public trusts, and placed this legacy in the hands of the person he believes will carry it forward. That is not just a gift. That is a judgment. And it is a judgment that will echo through every state banquet, every diplomatic reception, and every historic photograph for the next 50 years.